Long after the echoes of sword clashes faded into the darkness, the labyrinthine cave pulsed with a life of its own, and Ling Han's mind traced every treacherous step they had taken. The stench of thousands of slain insects lingered like a grim reminder, weaving with the poison that gnawed subtly at their strength. Dongfang Rui's fury simmered in the shadows, and even the Empress's blazing vitality index struggled to hold back the relentless waves. Yet it was the looming, immobile mountain, the very body of the insect queen, that cast the longest shadow, promising a challenge unlike any before. As the group steeled themselves, each heartbeat a countdown. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, chapter 21:447, begins where survival itself trembles, and the next strike could decide the fate of all who dared face the endless swarm. A maze does not need walls to become a prison. Sometimes all it needs is darkness, a false scent of treasure, and enemies that slowly drain your strength before you even realize you are being hunted. Ling Han's group had entered this underground passage seeking the celestial seed, that heavenly opportunity capable of changing a cultivator's future. The fragrance of the treasure kept pulling them deeper, stronger with every step, as if destiny itself were whispering, "Come closer." But in the world of Shanxia, the sweeter the fragrance, the sharper the hidden blade. Their first shock came not from the insects, but from a familiar enemy. A figure appeared in the darkness and attacked with the light of a celestial tool. Ling Han instantly understood that this was no mindless creature. It was a human cultivator. And not just anyone. It was Dongfang Rui. Now, here is where Ling Han's character becomes especially ruthless. He recognized him, and still swung his sword without mercy. This was not an accident. This was the cold logic of the immortal path. In a forbidden place, with danger on every side, an enemy appearing in the dark is not a person to greet. He is a chance to remove future trouble. Unfortunately for Ling Han, Dongfang Rui reacted quickly enough to enter the heaven-forbidden state. That one decision saved his life. For those keeping track of the power scaling, this is important. Dongfang Rui, under normal conditions, could have been killed if Ling Han's strike landed cleanly. But once he entered that forbidden state, his strength temporarily rose to a level touching Celestial King battle power. Ling Han's attack still injured him, but it was no longer enough to finish him. And that slight difference between life and death becomes the heart of this encounter. Dongfang Rui had grown up as someone who was rarely humiliated. He was the kind of genius used to standing above others. But Ling Han had repeatedly forced him into disadvantage. And now, in this dark maze, Ling Han nearly cut him down while also mocking him as if he were no better than the foul insects crawling through the tunnels. That insult mattered, not because it changed the battle, but because it changed the hatred. Dongfang Rui did not stay and fight. He understood the situation. This was not the right place, not the right moment, and Ling Han was not alone. So he retreated, swallowing his rage and burying it deeper inside his Dao heart. But retreat is not forgiveness. In his mind, this was no longer just rivalry. It became a blood debt. He vowed that once he reached the Celestial King tier, killing Ling Han would not be enough. He wanted revenge so brutal it would erase the humiliation from his bones. And Ling Han did not chase him. That restraint is just as important as the attack itself. Ling Han is aggressive, but he is not reckless. He knows when the cost is not worth the gain. In a normal battlefield, perhaps he would pressure Dongfang Rui. But in this place, where every step is uncertain and every breath seems contaminated by danger, wasting energy on a fleeing enemy would be foolish. The group's attention returned to the maze, and the mystery only deepened. Dongfang Rui had been walking toward them, yet both sides believed they were approaching the celestial seed. The fragrance was becoming stronger for Ling Han's group, and apparently it was the same for others as well. That means the tunnels were not behaving like ordinary paths. This was not just a cave, it was a formation, a labyrinth, or perhaps something even stranger. The island was already suspicious. The water vines outside had been sinister, and now this foul underground nest seemed completely incompatible with the presence of a sacred celestial tree. A celestial seed should be a treasure of heaven and earth. Yet here, everything surrounding it felt rotten, poisonous, and wrong. That contradiction is the real warning sign of the chapter. A treasure may be real, but the place protecting it may not be meant for salvation. It may be a trap that feeds on greed. Ling Han decided to retreat to a previous fork and test another route. Sensible, careful. The kind of decision that separates survivors from corpses in ancient ruins. But the maze had no intention of letting them move peacefully. Soon, the insects arrived again. Only this time, it was not a small wave. More than 100 creatures emerged from the darkness. Earlier battles had already disgusted the group because these insects released an unbearable stench after being killed. Even a handful of them could make the air almost impossible to endure. Now, with over 100 crawling forward, the danger was no longer only physical. It was spiritual pressure through disgust, exhaustion, and environmental corruption. But then the swarm did something unexpected. They did not charge wildly. They separated like soldiers clearing a royal path. And from behind them came a much larger creature, a massive gray-green insect, round and bloated, carried by its lesser kin. A single horn grew from its head, and that horn crackled with lightning. This was not just a stronger monster. This was hierarchy. The insects had commanders. The large one released lightning from its horn, and the Empress stepped forward to meet it. With one motion, she answered with the force of regulation, and the clash ended evenly. That one exchange revealed something frightening. The giant insect's vitality index was roughly comparable to the Empress's, around 4,800. In plain terms, this thing was not a random beast. It had the combat strength of a top-level existence below the Celestial King threshold, and Ling Han immediately understood the terrifying implication. If this creature was the king of the nest, then the situation was manageable. But if it was only a commander, then there had to be something worse deeper inside. That is classic Xianxia danger scaling. The first elite monster is never the true calamity. It is often just a door guard wearing the mask of a boss. Ling Han handed the divine demon sword to the Empress, and the battle balance shifted instantly. With her cultivation power and the sword's destructive edge, the Empress cut through the swarm with overwhelming force. The ordinary insects were torn apart, and even the horned commander could not endure for long. Soon, the giant creature was split open, and the ground became a foul battlefield of broken shells, blood, and suffocating odor. But Ling Han still forced himself to endure the stench and cut off the creature's horn. This small action shows the alchemist and researcher side of him. Ling Han is not only a fighter, he studies, dissects, compares, and extracts value from danger. To another person, the horn would be a disgusting remnant. To him, it was a clue. After examining it, he discovered that the horn contained strange internal markings, seals capable of drawing out lightning power and turning it into attacks. But those seals had already been damaged. This is a key cultivation detail. Powerful beasts often carry innate techniques within their bodies, but upon death, those secrets may self-destruct. It is nature's way of protecting bloodline inheritance. A divine ability is not meant to be casually stolen by anyone with a sharp blade and curiosity. Even so, the horn itself was shockingly tough, strong enough that the divine demon sword only left a shallow mark on it. Again, the chapter is quietly telling us something. These insects are not normal. They stink like filth, live in darkness, and appear monstrous. But their bodies contain refined structures, lightning seals, and materials almost worthy of celestial tools. That contradiction makes the underground world feel even more unnatural. As the group continued exploring, Ling Han's earlier fear proved correct. There was not just one horned insect. There were many. Most possessed vitality indexes around 4,800, while some were even stronger, reaching about 4,850. At that level, even the Empress could feel pressure. And Ling Han did not want her relying too easily on precious resources like the Crimson Demonic Earth, so he stepped in when necessary and quickly handled the danger. For more than 10 days, they wandered. Again and again, insects attacked. Every half hour or so, another group appeared. The battles themselves were not impossible, but the environment became more punishing with each encounter. Their bodies were stained with that horrible smell. Their minds were worn down. Their patience was being cut away piece by piece. And this is where the chapter becomes more than a monster fight. It becomes attrition. A weak enemy that attacks on says nothing. A disgusting enemy that attacks endlessly becomes a trial. The maze is not trying to defeat them with one decisive blow. It is trying to exhaust their bodies, disturb their senses, and make them careless. They also encountered other cultivators in the maze, but no one joined forces. That choice says a lot about the nature of immortal opportunity. Everyone knew the celestial seed might be nearby. Everyone wanted it. In a labyrinth, cooperation could increase survival, but it could also mean sharing the final prize or exposing one's back to betrayal. So each group chose their own path, hoping that if they escaped the maze first, the treasure would belong to them alone. Greed isolates people, and isolation makes the maze even more dangerous. Then came the most unsettling discovery. Ling Han began to feel tired. At first, that should have been impossible. His physique was monstrous. His endurance was beyond ordinary cultivators. A few battles and days of travel should not have drained him so badly. But it was not only him. The Empress, who knew, and bewitching Maiden Rue also felt the same wariness. Even though they had not been fighting heavily during the later stages, that was when the truth emerged. The insects were poisonous, not in the obvious way, not a deadly venom that burns the blood or melts the meridians. This poison was subtle. It seeped out slowly, likely from their bodies or from their corpses after death. It accumulated in silence. It did not kill immediately. It weakened. And because the effect was gradual, even experts like Ling Han's group did not notice until they were already trapped in its influence. That is far more terrifying than a single venomous bite. A visible poison can be resisted. A sudden wound can be treated. But a slow poison that disguises itself as ordinary fatigue attacks the cultivator's judgment. It makes the strong question themselves. It turns confidence into hesitation. For Ling Han, this realization changes the entire meaning of the maze. The insects are not just guards, they are part of the mechanism. The stench, the endless attacks, the exhaustion, the confusing paths, and the irresistible fragrance of the celestial seed all work together like pieces of a cruel formation. The maze tempts cultivators forward while slowly shaving away their strength. And the chapter ends with Ling Han releasing the limits on his cultivation, testing whether that would trigger a response. But nothing happened. That silence is ominous. In many forbidden grounds, suppressing or releasing cultivation can activate restrictions, provoke heavenly pressure, or reveal hidden rules. Here, the lack of reaction suggests the trap operates differently. It does not care whether Ling Han hides his strength or shows it, which means the true danger may not be the restriction on cultivation. It may be the place itself. So now the question becomes sharper. If the insects are only commanders, if the poison has already entered their bodies, and if the celestial seed's fragrance keeps luring everyone deeper, then what is waiting at the center of this maze? A heavenly treasure? A monstrous insect king? Or something far worse, wearing the scent of fortune as bait? Imagine being trapped in a labyrinth of relentless insects, every step forward a gamble between life and death. This isn't just another skirmish, it's a crucible, testing the limits of courage, strength, and strategy. Ling Han and his companions have always had a trump card, the ability to break through to the Celestial King tier. But here, even that advantage falters under the crushing effects of venom, leaving them vulnerable and stripped of their ultimate power. What unfolds is a masterclass in tactical desperation. The water vines that first ensnared them weren't mere obstacles. They were a meticulously laid trap. The celestial seed was bait, the cave a calculated prison. Ling Han senses the impending danger. A surge of killing intent is approaching, and there's no black tower to shield them this time. Every misstep could mean a plunge into an abyss from which there is no return. As they press deeper into the cave, an eerie anomaly emerges. For hours, there are no forks in the path, a sharp contrast to the disorienting maze they had expected. It's a subtle psychological pressure, and then, without warning, the insects arrive. Not one, not 10, but thousands, swarming like a living, writhing ocean. Their relentless waves force the group into an unforgiving calculus. Fight, survive, and move forward, or succumb to the poison and sheer numbers. Ling Han's body and spirit are taxed, yet the fire of determination burns brighter with each step. And then the cave reveals its horrifying secret, an enormous central peak, entirely covered with insects, a nest of incomprehensible scale. Here, strategy is no longer optional. Coordination and division of roles are life itself. Huo Farong takes command, delineating front, sides, and rear, while allies consume crimson demonic earth to temporarily amplify their power. This is not just a battle. It's an exercise in survival calculus under extreme duress. Ling Han and Huo Furong stand at the forefront, the pillars against the insect tide. The narrative here is fascinating because it highlights the interplay between raw strength and resource management. Ling Han's body art and regulation are in perfect synchrony, allowing him to sustain peak combat performance while his allies teeter on exhaustion. He is a rare figure whose stamina transcends the ordinary limits of even the Celestial King tier. The choreography of their fight, the strategic rotations, defensive barriers, and targeted strikes illustrates a deep understanding of battlefield dynamics within a Xianxia framework. It's not just about who hits harder, it's about endurance, timing, and anticipation. Yet, even amidst the fury of battle, subtle threats persist. Ling Han spots a winged insect, its venomous attack almost striking Hu Niu. This is a reminder that the enemy's cunning matches its ferocity. Every move must be calculated, every breath accounted for, because even a minor oversight can have catastrophic consequences. It's a reflection of the high-stakes tension inherent in this world. One poisoned wound, one hidden ambush, and an immortal's journey could be cut short. From a broader perspective, this chapter showcases the harsh reality of cultivation in a Xianxia universe. Progression isn't just about breaking through to higher tiers. It's about surviving the unpredictable, outsmarting traps, and mastering the balance between offense, defense, and resource consumption. Ling Han's leadership, resilience, and ability to sustain peak combat output under poison and overwhelming odds underscore why he is not only a formidable fighter, but a strategic mind capable of navigating chaos itself. So, what does this tell us about the road ahead? The insect nest is not merely a physical obstacle, it's a metaphorical trial. Ling Han and his companions are being pushed to the limits of their cultivation, forced to innovate and adapt on the fly. This is the crucible where true Celestial King potential is forged. The question now becomes, can they endure the escalating waves of danger, or will the cleverness of their enemies finally outmatch even the most disciplined cultivators? The answers lie in the next surge, the next shift of battle, and the unseen threats that have yet to reveal themselves. Imagine a battlefield where every step could be your last, and even the smallest creatures are death incarnate. Today, we dive into a moment that redefines cunning and sheer martial genius in the world of Xianxia. Ling Han facing an army of monstrous insects, each more lethal than the last. This isn't just a fight, it's a masterclass in strategy, resilience, and the terrifying beauty of peak cultivation. At first glance, these aren't ordinary pests. 3 breeds dominate this hive of chaos. The multi-legged ones carry venom so potent that death itself seems merciless. Horned insects wield lightning with long-range precision, capable of shredding formations from afar. But the true nightmare? The winged ones. Agile, cunning, and brutal. They strike unseen, their attacks sharp enough to pierce even seasoned warriors. Against any ordinary cultivator, a single wound would be fatal. Only artifacts of the highest order could even hope to counter them. And that's where Ling Han's brilliance comes in. Channeling the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, a legendary celestial tool that once belonged to the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, he becomes a fortress unto himself. Golden light shimmers across his body, poison vaporizing in midair, and his defense reaches a level rivaling that of a first heaven celestial king. This isn't just technique, it's the fusion of Dao and legacy, a reminder of why the pinnacle of cultivation isn't measured solely by attack, but by survival under overwhelming pressure. Now, picture Ling Han isolating a single winged insect, timing his strike with deadly precision. This is more than brute strength. It's spatial manipulation, the regulations of space bending reality around him so that a creature accustomed to launching sneak attacks is caught unawares. When his fist strikes, jade-green blood sprays, and a gray, deathly mist rises. Surrounding him, the other insects respond with waves of sonic attacks, yet his defense holds. This moment perfectly illustrates the balance in Xianxia combat. Offense and defense are a dance of life and death, and only those who understand both can dominate the battlefield. But strategy isn't just about raw power, it's about timing and endurance. Ling Han doesn't charge recklessly. He conserves his energy, absorbs the poison, and pushes his body to its limits. Each strike, each evasive maneuver is calculated. Even as the golden light of the scroll dims under the ceaseless assault, his resolve does not. This isn't heroics, it's mastery. He's exploiting the terrain, the habits of his foes, and the very laws of space to tip the scales in a situation designed to crush him. Here's what makes this sequence compelling. It's not just action, it's narrative tension. Every winged insect represents a tactical nightmare. Ling Han's allies can't intervene, and the enemy's cunning forces him into isolation. The scene demonstrates why peak cultivators like him are legends. The ability to strike decisively in the heart of chaos, survive the impossible, and manipulate battle in ways ordinary minds can't comprehend. And yet, even at his peak, Ling Han is human. Poison gnaws at him, exhaustion weighs heavy, and every calculated strike has its cost. He must rotate with his team, recover, and prepare to re-engage, highlighting a fundamental truth in Xianxia warfare. No one is invincible, and survival is as much about patience and strategy as it is about power. His victories are measured not by the creatures he slays alone, but by the preservation of his team and the careful dismantling of the enemy's threat. In essence, this encounter is a microcosm of Xianxia philosophy: power tempered by intellect, courage balanced with caution, and the ever-present shadow of mortality driving even the mightiest to innovate. Ling Han isn't just a fighter here. He's a strategist, an embodiment of cultivation at its peak, facing forces that would make lesser beings crumble. And the battlefield whispers the promise that even in chaos, mastery can carve a path through death itself. So, as the dust settles and the next wave of enemies looms, we're left asking, how much more can one man endure? And what hidden depths of Dao will he unveil next? The answer promises even greater spectacle, and for those of us watching from the edge of legend, the suspense is intoxicating. A sea of insects is terrifying enough. But what happens when that sea begins to think? That is the dark question hanging over this moment. Ling Han is not merely fighting claws, wings, poison, and numbers anymore. He is facing something far more dangerous: coordination, strategy, a will hidden somewhere inside the swarm. And in the world of cultivation, the moment a mind appears behind a monster tide, the battlefield changes completely. Ling Han reappears, aiming to finish another winged insect. But this time, the swarm is ready. Waves of sound crash toward him like invisible hammers. The insects are not attacking randomly. They are trying to force him into a choice. If he ignores the sound waves, he risks being blown away. If he defends, he loses speed. And if he loses speed, the winged insect escapes. This is the first frightening sign that the swarm has evolved from a chaotic disaster into something like an army. Ling Han immediately understands the deeper meaning. These creatures had once seemed mindless, almost empty inside. When he tried to sense or communicate with them, there was no real intelligence, only disorder. Yet now, they are protecting each other, reacting to his tactics, and covering a companion in danger. That does not happen by accident. Somewhere in this ocean of insects, there must be a commander, a king, a queen, a central will. And Ling Han's thinking is very sharp here. He does not waste time admiring the swarm's change. He instantly recognizes the classic battlefield principle: to break the army, strike the leader. If the hidden ruler can be killed, this endless insect tide might fall apart. But that idea is easier to say than to perform. The enemy is not standing proudly on a throne. It is buried inside a living nightmare, protected by countless bodies, darkness, poison, and death. Still, Ling Han has no luxury of hesitation. The sound wave attack closes in. Then Ling Han releases the power of time. For a brief instant, the battlefield seems to fall under heavenly restriction. The incoming sound waves slow, freeze, and lose their rhythm. This is not ordinary speed. This is the Dao of time bending the moment itself, turning a deadly attack into something Ling Han can break through. And here is why this scene matters. Ling Han is not simply stronger than the insects. He is using a higher law. Against countless enemies, brute force can be swallowed. But a supreme regulation like time can create a single impossible opening. That is the difference between fighting hard and fighting with heaven-defying insight. He tears through the halted sound waves, shattering them like broken crystal, and reaches the winged insect before it can fully act. The creature has already prepared a hidden arrow formed from dark regulations. It is ready to launch a sneak attack from its mouth. But Ling Han is faster in the one moment that counts. His fist crashes into the creature's throat. The attack lands before the arrow can be released. The insect dies, and the regulation-formed arrow collapses with it, losing the power that sustained its shape. That is Ling Han's second major kill against the winged insects. But victory has a price. The enhanced flow of time drains him terribly. He has only increased the effect by a small margin, yet the energy cost rises like a bottomless abyss. This tells us something important about cultivation mechanics in this world. The closer one moves toward manipulating supreme laws, the more unreasonable the cost becomes. Time is powerful because it is not meant to be easily touched. Ling Han survives the backlash only because his physical foundation is monstrous. A normal cultivator might have collapsed right there. Even so, he does not stay to show off. He retreats through the swarm, covered in the insect's foul green blood, cutting his way back like a war god returning from the enemy's heart. The swarm's reaction is also interesting. They show fear, not human fear, not full understanding, but instinctive caution. The winged insects now understand that Ling Han can kill them, and because of that, the remaining ones pull farther back, attacking from safer positions. This is a small victory, but a meaningful one. By killing 2 winged insects, Ling Han reduces the pressure on the entire group. The enemies that once threatened them from the air and from hidden angles are now less aggressive. The formation breathes again. Huo Furong helps burn away the poisonous blood clinging to Ling Han's body, using green flames to evaporate the filth. But even the vapor that rises from it is disgusting and dangerous, carrying a strange gray substance that makes the body recoil. This detail reminds us that the danger is not only in being bitten or struck, the entire environment is hostile. Blood, poison, air, sound, darkness, everything inside this insect nest is a weapon. Ling Han drops down to recover. Huo Furong, recognizing his contribution, tells him to rest longer and offers to cover his share of the burden, and no one objects. That silence says everything. Among monarch stars, pride is usually sharper than a blade. But Ling Han's achievements are undeniable. He has killed countless ordinary insects and, more importantly, removed 2 of the most dangerous winged threats. In a battle where survival depends on everyone's contribution, merit speaks louder than ego, yet the relief does not last. The swarm keeps coming. No matter how many insects fall, more flood forward. Blood gathers on the ground, corpses pile up, techniques explode, but the tide does not thin. The cultivators begin to realize the terrible truth. Endurance alone will not save them. Their bodies are also accumulating poison. Even if their willpower remains firm, their battle strength is slowly being corroded. In Shansha battles, this is often the deadliest kind of pressure. Not one overwhelming strike, but a gradual weakening that makes every later mistake more fatal. Then, Jia Lan uses a special scouting technique. A shadow leaves her body and drifts deeper into the insect cave. It has form, but no true substance. The insects can detect it, and they try to attack it, but their strikes pass through uselessly. Huo Furong identifies the technique as the Divine Shadow skill, a powerful method for scouting dangerous places because it creates something like a shadow clone born from the laws of heaven and earth. This is not a combat move, it is information warfare. And in this situation, information is more valuable than another flashy attack. When Jialan's consciousness returns, her face changes. What she discovers explains everything. There is an insect queen inside the cave, laying eggs at a monstrous speed. The insects are not merely numerous. They are being replaced almost as quickly as they are being killed. This revelation transforms the entire battle. Before this, the group believed they were fighting an endless swarm because the nest already contained countless insects. Now they know the problem is worse. The battlefield is a living production line. The queen is not just a leader. She is the source of the army. Ji Wuming immediately sees the implication. They cannot win by killing the swarm alone. Huo Furong and Ling Han reach the same conclusion. The only path left is to kill the insect queen. And this is where the chapter shifts from defense to desperation. Until now, the group has been holding formation, rotating between fighting and recovering. That strategy is safe, controlled, and logical. But against an enemy that can replace its losses endlessly, defense becomes a slow death. So the Monarch Stars make the only choice worthy of their title. They stop waiting. They stop conserving. They charge. Every cultivator releases powerful methods. Divine light erupts. Their battle strength surges toward the Celestial King level, turning the group into a spear aimed straight at the nest's deepest darkness. This is one of those classic Xianxia moments where talent, pride, and survival all meet. These are not ordinary geniuses. They are people who have walked over countless rivals to reach this point. When the road disappears, they carve a new one through blood. But even with that resolve, the advance is brutal. Every step forward demands a price. The insect tide pushes against them like a black ocean. Attacks come from every direction. The cave itself seems to expand, as if space has been twisted, making the distance feel larger and more oppressive. Ling Han also prepares one of his hidden cards, the Heaven and Earth Origin Stars. Until now, they have served more as a deterrent than a true weapon. But he senses that this may be the moment when intimidation is no longer enough. Against something at the scale of an insect queen, ordinary methods may not decide the battle. The group finally pushes deeper and searches for the queen's location. Jialan points toward what looks like a mountain ahead. At first, everyone assumes the queen must be somewhere on that mountain. That would already be difficult enough. They need an exact target, a weak point, some place to strike. But Jialan's answer chills them. The mountain is not the queen's hiding place. The mountain is the queen. That massive shape in the darkness is the insect queen's body. And suddenly, the impossible birth rate makes sense. A creature that enormous could produce an army without pause. It is not merely a monster. It is a living fortress, a breeding abyss, a source of calamity large enough to reshape the entire battlefield. This ending lands with a powerful sense of dread. Because now the group has solved the mystery, but the answer may be worse than ignorance. They know what must be killed. They know why the swarm is endless. They know the only way out. But how do you kill something the size of a mountain? Where is its heart? Where is its weakness? And can even monarch stars survive long enough to find it? That is the true cliffhanger. Ling Han and the others have broken through the outer terror, only to discover that the real nightmare has been waiting in silence all along. Imagine standing before a mountain that isn't made of stone, but of living, chitinous armor, teeming with an endless swarm of venomous, egg-laying monsters. That was the battlefield Ling Han and Huo Furong faced. A scene where strategy, courage, and sheer cultivation would be tested to the limits. This wasn't just a fight. It was a clash against nature's most terrifying perversion, where the line between life and death blurred with every heartbeat. At the center of this nightmare stood the insect queen, a colossal entity whose intelligence and spiritual presence made it far more than a simple predator. Huo Furong, knowing only someone of Ling Han's caliber could stand beside her, made a vow. Together, they would end this queen's reign. Here, raw strength alone wouldn't suffice. They had to combine strategy, technique, and audacious courage. Each step toward the mountain was a gauntlet, a test of their mastery below the Celestial King tier. The mountain itself was alive, pulsating with writhing pipes, birthing larvae continuously, while legions of winged and crawling insects scuttled and swarmed with deadly precision. The pair realized quickly, attacking blindly was suicide. They had to strike at the mind, the central command, the queen herself. Like bees defending their hive, these creatures weren't mindless. Their loyalty to their sovereign made them relentless and terrifying. Huo Furong unleashed her celestial tool, a mirror of blazing light, decimating countless foes in a display of raw, overwhelming might. The flames weren't just destructive. They were a statement, a declaration that this battlefield would not bend without a fight. Meanwhile, Ling Han's movements were precise and calculated. He manipulated space itself, teleporting in short bursts to minimize risk, advancing relentlessly toward the summit. Every step was a gamble, every attack a study in efficiency against an impenetrable foe. Now, let's talk about the Insect Queen's defenses. Her shell wasn't merely strong, it was monumental. Ling Han's divine demon sword, capable of cutting through mountains and spirits alike, could barely leave a mark. This wasn't just a battle of power, it was a confrontation of patience, timing, and insight. They couldn't brute force victory. They needed to exploit the queen's necessity to feed, to expose the vulnerable core hidden beneath that unyielding shell. But danger lurked at every turn. Towering mantis-like guardians, each as long as 30 meters, barred the final path. Their pincers, glowing with a faint but terrifying light, could regenerate from Ling Han's blows, forcing him to innovate on the fly. Every strike, every maneuver, carried the weight of life or death. The swarm pressed from below, the air thick with the sting of relentless assault, testing both his body and his resolve. This is where cultivation, tactics, and sheer will converged. Ling Han didn't just fight, he observed, adapted, and anticipated. His sword became an extension of his intent, a conduit for space-altering regulations, slicing not only through matter, but through the oppressive will of this monstrous army. Huo Furong's unyielding flames provided cover, decimating the front lines, allowing Ling Han to confront the heart of the threat. And here lies the core lesson of this encounter. Strength alone is never enough in a world of xianxia. Insight, timing, and the ability to read the battlefield, the interplay of life, spirit, and cultivation, are what separate survival from annihilation. The insect queen represents more than a physical challenge. It embodies the apex of natural cunning fused with spiritual power. Only by understanding its patterns, weaknesses, and the nature of its control over the swarm could victory even be conceivable. As the pair pushed upward, the stakes became almost unbearable. Ling Han's sword flashes, Huo Furong's blazing dragon-shaped palm, the endless surge of insect warriors. It all paints a picture of chaos contained by supreme cultivation and indomitable resolve. But the summit, the final confrontation with the Queen's mind, looms ahead. The question isn't whether they can survive. It's whether they can act decisively enough to shatter the nerve center before the mountain of chitin and venom swallows them whole. So, what does this battle tell us about heroes in a xianxia world? True elites aren't defined by raw power alone. They're defined by courage in the face of overwhelming odds, the wisdom to exploit weakness, and the harmony between their spiritual cultivation and physical technique. Ling Han and Huo Furong aren't just fighting for survival. They're carving a legend with every strike, testing the very boundaries of what it means to challenge a being whose existence defies mortal comprehension. And as the Insect Queen's defenses brace for the coming assault, one can't help but wonder, in a world where life itself is a weapon, can any strike reach the mind of such a monstrous sovereign? Or will the mountain of living armor prove to be the ultimate judgment of their skill and determination?